This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. Your war room for insider news and draft analysis from deep within the confines of Cowboys headquarters at the Star in Frisco. And now, your host, Kyle Yeomans.
Today is April 22nd. It is a Tuesday, and we are 2 days away from the NFL draft in Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's the final draft show presented by Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. It's Miller time as we lead into draft weekend starting on Thursday, 6 p.m. Central Time on 105.3 The Fan and DallasCowboys.com, the Dallas Cowboys Radio Network on Thursday, and then we work all the way through the weekend. All 257 picks coming up starting on Thursday. We've got Zach Wolchuk, Brian Broaddus, Tommy Yarish, Nick Harris. I'm Kyle Yeomans with Chris Beam and crew in the back. He's got a full team back there getting ready for this B-roll and making sure that we've got every prospect covered because, Brian, it's time. It's draft week.
How about that?
Came quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, not really. No, it's been a while. I guess I feel like I've been working on this. I know Nick's talking about been working on it since the summer. I started in
Summer
November.
of 22.
Yeah, November. So, no, it's the thing right now is, like I say, I'm consumed with trying to figure out how their stack looks, and I'm trying to figure out around the league so I have an idea potentially of where this thing could fall for Dallas. I'm trying to prepare for the worst possible scenarios where, for example, when Ashton Genty goes to 5 to Jacksonville, and then now that turns the Raiders into maybe a Tet McMillan or something like that. I need to figure out how high they have Matthew Golden on their board. Do they have offensive linemen above him? Is the distance between those guys pretty significant? Is Will Johnson in play? We're going to have a chance to talk with Will McClay and those guys and Jerry Jones and those guys today. We can ask some probing questions to maybe get an idea of where they're looking at with some of these players. They probably won't tell us the names, but if you can ask them to specifically give you an idea of how they measure certain players or look at certain players, then maybe that can give you some clues. But we need to figure out how this stack is going to be because there's going to be a possibility there's some players that we've all kind of talked about that might not be there for this football team. That part of it's the fun part for me right now.
Yeah, there's no question. I think that Tet McMillan is the pick if he's there at 12. To me, that's I think the direction they're going to go. I think he's their top wide receiver on their board personally. But you're going to have to navigate some minefields now because it does sound like Ashton Genty, and Brian, you were on that yesterday on our show. Jacksonville's probably going to snag him there at 5, and maybe New England might end up just saying, you know what, we're going to take him at 4.
Yeah.
So where does Tet go? Could Tet still be in play with New England, who's been hunting for wide receivers? And I know they signed Stephon Diggs, but that's a different type of wide receiver, or are they locked in on Will Campbell? What happens with the Vegas Raiders then at 6? I think that's a great point for Tet McMillan as well. New Orleans at 9.
Yeah.
We've thought maybe a quarterback there. It doesn't sound like they're in on Shador Sanders.
Yeah.
It sounds like Jackson Dart could be the guy.
Well,
do they pivot and take Tet McMillan?
It sounds like to me that Walker's in play there. The edge linebacker from Georgia is what a lot of people are saying that the quarterback is not going to be the selection there. Well, we'll see. We'll see how. But right now, the name that I'm hearing really strong in New Orleans is Jalen Walker, the edge linebacker but he's also in play potentially with Carolina at 8. So these are guys that if you asked me right now, give me a wild card guy that if he got through, and I think Walker's a wild card guy. You just don't send coaches down in a private workout to send them down there. You're trying to kind of figure some things out. We'll figure it out with Malik Williams out there. You figure it out too with this, with Walker as well. So I think they're trying to kind of set things up that if they, in fact, and I'm not saying they get wiped out, but there's potentially some guys that they think might be there. Now this thing is shaking in a couple of different ways that maybe those guys that they thought about here maybe a couple weeks ago might not be available, and they have to be able to pivot off that.
Yeah, 5 to 11 could go a million different directions.
Really could.
Absolutely.
And there's some pretty strong reports from people I trust, at least, that say that 3 offensive linemen are going to be in the top 10. And if that's factoring in Will Campbell, Armand Membu, Kelvin Banks, what does that look like? Where do those guys go? And then on the flip side, who falls? Who's going to be there for you at 12 that you maybe didn't expect? Is it a Jalen Walker?
Yeah.
Or is it a Tet McMillan potentially? Is it a Mason Graham even? I don't think he'll slip that far, but I'm just kind of speaking to the million possibilities that this top 12 will have. This team, they can go through the possibilities, they can go through the scenarios, but they really won't know what it's going to look like until the war room is there, and there will be a war room discussion. If Tet McMillan is off the board, I think it will be a war room discussion to try to guys campaigning for their guys, and we'll be watching the draft feed right here, looking at them going back and forth.
Do you think, Nick, that they will just sit there and trust the stack, though, when they, maybe the discussions that they need to have right now are being had?
Yeah.
And I think this is why, with the draft being a couple of days away, these are the times you sit in that room and really hash out, okay, what if? What if? And just create as much tension as you can in that room right now, so that when we saw what happened with the Johnny Manziel, the potential Johnny Manziel discussion. Yes, it was brought up, but then it was quickly brought up that, hey, we have Zach Martin in our stack here and here. I would hate for them to get in that room and start jumping tags if that was the case. That to me defeats everything. If you're going to put together an order and you say this is how we would take these players, and you don't window dress your board, you should take those players. So the discussions, I think, need to be happening right now. I don't know. It sounds like that maybe you might feel different about that.
Well, it is the benefit of having a guy like Brian Schottenheimer in the building. He's going to over-communicate. He's going to go through those scenarios. He's going to talk that through with the scouting staff. Whereas a couple years ago when there was a debate between Mozzie Smith and Matthew Bergeron, was that something that maybe could have been addressed in the days prior? And would they maybe have made a better pick, whether it wasn't those two guys or somewhere else? So I wonder how much they learn on those kinds of things and can go back to it.
Kind of the way that you're outlining this, Brian, it kind of sounds like you feel like there is going to be some window dressing. You talked about worst case scenario.
I just, like I said, to me, and I'm sorry I didn't let you finish there. That's my apology. Yeah. I don't think you shouldn't window dress. And I can't speak for them what's going on in that room right now. But if you're sitting there jumping tags, okay, let's be honest. Tom Siskowski lost his job here with the Sharif Floyd draft. If you remember, the scouts had him, and then Rod Marinelli wanted nothing to do with Sharif Floyd when it came down to Dallas's time to pick. They dropped back out of there and they took something else.
They took Shredrick, I believe, in that draft.
Well, it was something. But like I said, they had a plan for what they wanted to do, and Tom Siskowski stood up and said, "Hey, wait a minute, we've got this player. What are we doing?" Yeah. Ultimately, it cost him his job. That's the change that you made right there because of the discussions that weren't had beforehand. I would like to believe that they're not going to jump tags and they're going to have that stack how they want it. And you saw it you talk about war room discussions. It happened perfectly when you looked at how they drafted drafted Zach Martin. Mm-hmm. When Ryan Shazier went off the board, Jerry Jones fired. Look, hey, Johnny Manziel's still there. Yeah, Johnny Manziel's tag's below Zach Martin's tag. Yeah, we're going to take Zach Martin here, Jerry. Yeah. And that's okay. That's how those things work. So, but if there's window dressing going on and all that, then to me, that always spells like failure to me. I guess when you jump in tags because you're not true to your board.
The one question I would have, and we've all been studying this draft, and you're kind of putting together your own stacks, is you do kind of have a clump of players that are all very similar. And I think that they would probably be comfortable with a good cluster of players, which is why, like, the trade back, I think, would be ideal for them. The problem is you're hearing everybody kind of wants to move back. Yeah. And I don't think you're going to get a partner. Yeah. So is it less of maybe jumping tags just in this weird draft, how it is when you've got players that are all kind of...
Stack them. I mean, if you've got a cluster of players, and we're all dealing with this right now. Like I say, I'm going to post my stack, 235 players. Mm-hmm. Watch how I did the running backs in the second round when it came to my board, when it came to Johnson, when it came to Hampton, when it came to Henderson.
Sure.
I to myself, I said, I've got to do this for myself. I've got to determine my gut feeling or film, whatever you want to say, medical. I determined my guys in what order I put them in. If, like you say, the cluster's nice, put the cluster in the order that you would take it. Don't just jump around. Don't all of a sudden like, oh, geez, we like this guy on the clock. You don't have a lot of time as is to be having these discussions. These discussions need to be had right now.
And I think when you put that much work into a board and that much work into studying these prospects, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice if you don't stick to it, because then you don't trust your own process. And I think with the success that Dallas has had in the draft, if you look at a broader scale of it going back really in terms of their franchise history, then I think that they've done a good job. And you've been in that room, Brian, so you've seen what they've been able to do. In terms of this class, it is interesting because, Zach, they very clearly, it seems like, want to move back if they can. And everybody wants to move back if they can. My question is since everybody wants to move back, I wonder if there's one of the 32 teams out there that's saying, what if we move up?
Denver.
What if
Denver Broncos.
What if we're overthinking this a little bit?
Yeah.
What if there's someone there, like if Ted McMillan falls and Denver calls you?
Yeah.
I think that would be the conundrum where we're looking at that screen over there here on Thursday, and there's a lot of debate going on because what can you get would you be willing to sacrifice Ted McMillan to move back to 20, take a Mecca Igbokwe, and pick up another top 100 pick?
Pick up pick 51.
That's where the debate, I think, is good. If all of a sudden, the Cowboys will tell you, and Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones are adamant about this, and correct me if I'm wrong, boys. The minute you pick up that phone, you're losing the deal.
Yeah,
that's that. They say that. They the minute you pick up that phone, you're losing the deal. So okay, they pick up the phone. We've seen plenty of times where they're on the clock. Stephen Jones, phone. He's just waiting. Phone's ringing. Maybe it doesn't ring. Maybe it doesn't ring. But see, they're waiting. They're waiting to see. But you have to be ready for these discussions. If in fact, like, listen, if we're going to take this deal, what are we moving back for? That's where the cluster of players helps you. But make sure you have the clusters of players right how you would take them. There doesn't need to be a discussion about that. Like, okay, if we trade back and they go in order and we're comfortable with taking the third guy in the cluster, then let's make this trade. If we're not, let's stand in here and make a pick.
The nature of the deal with Denver that could be kind of throw a wrench into this is that it would be a 40-point overpay for Denver to go up to 12.
We saw it with Detroit last year.
Giving them 20 and 51.
Yeah.
We saw it with Detroit last year because there were a lot of calls that they were fielding.
Right.
They're not going to be fielding nearly as many calls this year. I don't think 51 would be in play if that were to happen. I think it would be a third. And then maybe you get
Underpay.
like a seventh or something down the line.
Like pick 85.
I would like to believe that Sean Payton, if he's coming up the board from 20 to 12, has somebody in mind, and it doesn't bother him to do that. He has a relationship with the Joneses, and Nick, I love what you're saying. I don't think you're wrong. I just think this is, if there's somebody that can cut a deal with the Joneses on an overpay. Look like I say, Dan Campbell in that group last year. It's Denver. They have a relationship. If you have relationships in the league, and sometimes you're like, listen, I want to go get this guy, and if I have to overpay a 2, maybe the draft gods are smiling on him because they should have got a 2 when they traded back for when they got Travis Frederick. They took a 3. Maybe the draft gods are saying this is the time you get an overpay. We're going to give you one here. But to me, this is. I think that a lot of the relationships are the ones that are important here. Trading partners are important that, like, listen, you want to come up here and get your player, I'll take 51 from you, and we'll call it a day. And, you kind of put the ball in Sean's court. And if he says no, then you just move on with your day.
What would a return pick look like in that scenario? Because you could send another pick back, one of those fifths, and that makes up the 50 overpay or
it
40
would be
overpay.
It would be that first fifth.
So
149.
And you don't want to go from, 76?
I'm not interested in doing that.
I'm not interested in doing that
But
either.
you pick up 2 seconds. So
Nah,
you
I'm
still
not
have
interested in
4.
doing that.
You have 4 top 100 picks.
I would rather get the third and send like a 7th, to be honest.
Sure.
If that's what it had to be.
That might be the back and forth
chart. Yeah.
Yeah.
If that's what
now,
it had to be.
going back to what Brian was talking about when it comes
I'd hold them up.
Get them.
I would. I'd hold them up. I'm like, listen, you want to come up here and grab a player, obviously. I'm interested. Sure, you could take 12. I want 51. And they're like, listen, we can't do 51. Then I'm like, okay.
Then I'm done.
Then I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. And then maybe somebody else wants to come up there. But to me, if you want to make that kind of move, if we're going to be in a draft where people are not going to give me value for my pick,
and pick,
then I'm just gonna stand there and pick.
Okay, so if they stand there and pick, we're talking about window dressing boards, right? And what it would look like. Let's pretend we don't have the connection. We don't talk to the war room. It's on mute. We're just watching them put the pick in on Thursday. at 12, and it ends up being one of these surprise names where it's Mykel Williams or Shamar Stewart or Will Johnson or Jahdae Barron or one of these other guys that's not Matthew Golden, Teteroa McMillan, and kind of the guys that we think to be likely to be the pick at 12. Would you consider that window dressing your board, or would you consider that staying in the stack?
If they have Mykel Williams and Stewart and all those guys, no, that's their stack.
That's the stack.
That's
right?
their stack. I'm not. Trust me, we're all selfish SOBs in this room. We want them to take the guys we like. We do. It makes good drama. It makes good theater. It makes all these things. We want them to, I don't want to sit here and rip them for taking a player that I didn't like. Mm-hmm. That's not good. But to me, yeah, it's their stack. And if that's their stack, then I'm not going to have a problem with that. If they saw, we all see these players different. Hell, Nick and I see players different a lot. Zach, all of us see players different in this thing.
Yeah.
So if that's what they think, if that's what they believe, that's on them. It's not on me. But hey, we put it out there. We're transparent. But I'm like I said, if that's how they have it stacked, it's not window dressing. That's their board.
I want to kick this around, and Brian, I mean, you've taught me stick to the stack, stick to your board, don't window.
Then why do it if you don't do it? I'm saying if you don't do it, if you don't believe in it, then don't do it.
I hear you.
Yeah.
The one thing that I wanted to ask is you were trying to figure out, hey, what are teams wanting?
Yeah.
And you're starting to hear corners. There could be a big run here, and they might go higher. Like some of these guys, Maxwell Harrison, Trey Amos out of Ole Miss, right? These guys might go higher than you think. Do you end up saying, like, maybe I need to prioritize a position there because I might get wiped out and I'm not going to get it there at 44 or at 76?
They did that with Taco. Wasn't that a Taco situation? Didn't they feel like they weren't going to get a defensive end coming back around?
Because that's why I'm starting to feel at 44, you're probably not going running back. You're probably going to have to go cornerback there, or else you're not going to get a guy that you think is a legit day one starter.
Yeah.
The thing that might happen is we might see a slide on some of these defensive tackles that we like, because of some medical questions. We might see, because of Collins, some of the medical questions with him. Mm-hmm. We might see some of the medical questions too, potentially, and maybe some other issues with Harmon from Oregon is a possibility. Maybe some of these tackles that we really, really like up high are going to slide a little bit, and we'll be surprised with, wow, why is that guy still there?
Yeah.
Well, this is the disadvantage that this room has. We don't have medical information on these players.
Correct.
We hear things and stuff like that, but not all of them. The question is, how many guys on this board have things that teams absolutely don't want to take? And we're sitting there and got these guys in the second and third round.
You see it from like years past. Nakobe Dean was one that recently was one of our top 15, 16 players in the entire draft. And
it might have to do with his lack of size there on that one more than anything.
Sure.
Nolan
and
Smith
I think there was
the same thing.
Yeah.
And Joey Porter Jr.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to happen. There's going to be at least one name that we're going to be sitting there middle of the first round saying, why is this name still available? And it may be a guy that the Cowboys have talked to. It may be somebody completely different and off the radar to a certain extent. And Tommy, I think you've been around this team enough to see kind of where they're leaning. The conversation is Tet versus Golden. Should it be something else other than Tet versus Golden at this point, or is that still the most likely pairing?
I mean, if both of them are there, that should absolutely be the conversation, I think. I think when you've got, two players of that caliber at such a position of need in that second wide receiver spot, you look at Tet McMillan and say, okay, this is a guy who can be our downfield threat. We need a guy who can complement CD on the outside. He can give that to us. And then Matthew Golden, somewhat the same thing, just kind of in a different way. Stephen Jones said at league meetings that, they want an explosive second option. I think both of them are explosive in their own separate ways. So the question is going to be, what kind of explosiveness are they looking for? Are they looking for the explosiveness in the speed aspect, where you've got Matthew Golden, who ran, a 4.29 40-yard dash, and he's just able to create separation early, win at the top of his routes? Or do you look at Teteroa McMillan's explosion in terms of what he can do in the air and with his catch radius and things like that? And so if those two guys are on the board, then that absolutely has to be the discussion, I think. Now, the interesting part of it is I don't think McMillan's going to be there. I really don't think so. I think he's that good of a player, and I think that there's going to be someone in the top 11 that's going to have him higher. And I mean, you even look at a team like San Francisco. They're the biggest wild card out of all of this, because if McMillan gets past the Bears at 10, which if he's still there, he probably will. I don't see them taking McMillan. Then everything's on the table for San Francisco.
San Fran, yeah.
So
they're going to be poaching you round after round.
Absolutely,
man.
And so McMillan is the guy that, you could say, okay, that's possible. I'm not saying it could be the pick. They could look at something else as a bigger position of need, but that's what it comes down to. So if he's off the board, then it comes down to the conversation that we were just having, which is, what does your stack look like? Is Matthew Golden ahead of a Mykel Williams? Is he ahead of a Shamar Stewart if he continues to drop? Is he ahead of Jalen Walker if Jalen Walker drops? I personally think Matthew Golden would do very well with the Cowboys, but I also wouldn't be surprised if there are other guys higher. I mean, I've still got Luther Burden higher on my board in terms of wide receiver. He's my second best wide receiver. I just don't know if he's the wide receiver fit that the Cowboys are looking for. I wrote down in my notes on him, I feel like I'm watching CeeDee Lamb's Oklahoma tape when I watch him play. It's a lot of similar things. Now, 2 CeeDee Lambs on a team is not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but if you're looking for a complement to him and not necessarily a clone, then that's where the conversation comes into play. So it wouldn't shock me if there are other names that are higher on the board, but if T-Mac and Golden are there, that's your conversation.
Igbukah is the big question for me.
That's another one.
Right, like Igbukah and Golden. See, I don't really think Burden's in play for them. And you could end up being right, man. Burden can end up being one of the best of this draft. But Igbukah is the guy that I would be advocating for personally. They talk a lot about wanting to improve the running game. Emeka Igbukah, and I've stressed this, he is, in my opinion, the best blocking wide receiver in this class. I think he can play all 3 wide receiver spots. I don't think he's getting enough credit for the explosiveness that he can play with. There are times you will see them dump the ball off at Ohio State to Emeka Igbukah, and he takes a short 3-5 yard slant, drag, screen, and takes it 50 yards to the house. I think he is one of the safest, can't-miss players in this draft. And you're talking about, 1, I'm filling a need. 2, I'm filling an absolute Robin to my Batman, and he has played that role his entire career. I love him. The body control, the route running, the hands. I would be standing on the table and fighting for Emeka Igbukah. He's got the size at 6'1", 205, and maybe Matthew Golden ends up being a better player, and he's certainly got the speed there. But I really wonder between those two, because I think it's Tet 1, but who's their wide receiver 2? Is it Golden? Is it Emeka Igbukah? I don't think we've talked about him enough.
Is he number 2 on your board?
He's number 2 for me.
Okay, so you're not window dressing. You're standing on it, and you're saying, who's 3?
That would end up being Golden.
Golden is 3.
Golden and Burden would be 4.
Okay.
Not including Travis.
Nick, how many players do you have between McMillan and Golden on your board?
About 24, 25.
Okay.
In between?
So it's not close to you.
My Golden is behind McMillan, Igbukah, and Burden for me.
Wow.
Okay. But as far as the top guys, say, for example, like if it was a Will Johnson or it was a Mykel Williams or it was one of these offensive linemen, say like a Simmons or somebody like that. Do you have all those guys in between?
What were those names again? Simmons, yes.
Simmons, Mykel Williams.
Yes.
Will Johnson.
Most definitely.
Who's the closest to Tet for you?
Closest to Tet is
out of those other names.
Igbukah.
Okay, so out of Igbukah, now non-wide receiver, who those other possible names?
Yeah, then we're starting to get into guys that I don't even expect to be there, like Mason Graham. I have Mason Graham after.
And Tet's that far up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, but I was trying to get a gauge. So you've got several players, top players, above Golden.
Yes.
Right. See, I'm trying to tell you, this could happen. This could be the same thing.
Same conversation.
Same thing here. Tommy, you're right. The conversation, if they're both there, should be. Let's see. I just think that they might have guys. We need to figure out how many guys they have between McMillan and Golden, because it might be guys that all of a sudden, like, it's automatically going to be Golden. No, maybe it's Will Johnson.
Yeah, it could be Will Johnson.
Maybe it's Will Johnson. Maybe it's
Shamar Stewart.
Yeah, exactly.
Williams,
Walter Nolan's a name that I know that they love in this building.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I mean, if they're following their stack and they have all those players between, then it makes a lot of sense that that's maybe the direction we go. Maybe it's not as cut and dry as we all think, that it's going to be either McMillan or Golden. There might be players between that we're not giving enough thought to.
And I think that's a great conversation, because I think here we're all pretty much in agreement that Tet's the number 1 board. T-Mac is the number 1 wide receiver on the board. Do you feel that way
on what you think about
them?
Hunter? If depending on what you feel about Hunter,
Wherever you put Travis Hunter,
I just kept Hunter out of this one.
Yeah, I've kind of put him in his own little category. When it comes to Tetairoa McMillan, he's the number 1 wide receiver that could be available at 12 for the Cowboys. When you look across the hall, do you feel confident that that's what they think? It's Tet number 1, Golden's still on that list, but now Brian's throwing the names in the mix in between the two. I think that's the best way to look at this board and trying to decipher what they're going to do across the hallway. I think it's Tetaroa, a little bit of space, and then Golden. The question that Brian continues to pose, and it's a great question, is how many guys are in between? Yeah. That's what's going to determine who's going to be the 12th pick on Thursday.
The culture that Brian Schottenheimer's trying to build, the staff that he's put together, the assistants that he's had with the experience that those guys have had in different places, the experience those guys have had recruiting different places too, at the receiver position specifically, talking about Junior Adams. If Ibuka's on the board right there, I'd be surprised if there's not a big conversation about Ibuka.
To throw him in that mix.
Yeah.
Let's go. That would be interesting.
Ibuka at 12, I could definitely see happening.
Wow. Okay.
Definitely see happening.
Somebody quoted, put it in a story.
Love you, Nick.
Fort Worth Star Telegram, Nick Harris says.
Flip it.
No, all right. He's right there.
Right.
Absolutely. He's right there.
All right. We got to take our first break. When we come back, it's time for some Twitter on the 20, and we'll answer your questions and maybe even go through a little quick mock draft from 5 to 11 to see what we can figure out's going to happen in front of the Cowboys. More of the draft show right after this.
Life is a workout, and Smoothie King is here to help you power through. Whether you're maxing out overhead presses, pushing through chest flies, or being the hero your golden retriever needs to carry them over that scary bridge, Smoothie King has the fuel to help you go all out. Build muscle and boost your recovery with 45 grams of protein, 0 grams of added sugar, and delicious customizable ingredients in the Gladiator Smoothie. Available in chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla. Only at Smoothie King.
Hi, Drew Pearson, former Dallas Cowboy and now Pro Football Hall of Famer here. If you're struggling with your vision and tired of those contacts and glasses, don't throw a Hail Mary. Go where I went. Laser Care Eye Center, the official LASIK partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Drew, thank you so much for trusting us with your vision correction procedure. At Laser Care Eye Center, we offer 6 different vision correction procedures to help patients see.
Check them out at dfweyes.com. Tell them Drew sent you. Hood hood.
I'm Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
And they snap it to Prescott, who looks right. It's not there. He escapes left. He'll run for a first down.
Just like football, when it comes to crypto, it's important to have a team you can trust. With blockchain.com, I know I'm in good hands. Since 2011, they've been trusted by millions around the world to buy, sell, and trade cryptocurrency.
Prescott's going to run this himself. Run it up the middle, and he scores.
Whether you're new to crypto or an active trader, they've got you covered. What are you waiting for? Get started at blockchain.com.
Cowboys fans, when it comes to navigating the ever-changing world of tax, your business needs a partner it can trust to tackle even your biggest tax challenges. Ryan is the largest firm in the world dedicated exclusively to business taxes. Our team of tax professionals has local expertise in all areas of tax and can help you uncover savings opportunities you didn't know you had. Learn more about how Ryan can improve your overall corporate tax performance by visiting Ryan.com. Ryan, the official tax partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
Draft your number 1 hat pick today with the official onstage hat of the NFL Draft. Now available at a pro shop near you or online at shop.dallascowboys.com, a Fanatics experience. And then tonight, remember, Cowboys Nation, 12th annual Reliant Home Run Derby tonight at 7 o'clock, 6 p.m. I've read the thing completely wrong. Let me restart.
That got me.
12th annual Reliant Home Run Derby on April 22nd. Come see your favorite Cowboys players swing for the fences, raise money for the Salvation Army, plus meet the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders and rowdy. Admission is free. Gates open at 6. Seating is first come, first served. Visit DallasCowboys.com/Reliant HRD for more details. Always a great event, raising money for the Salvation Army. Can't wait to get out there for a little bit and get to swing the bats for the Media Derby. I'll be hitting for the March of Dimes today, so that'll be a whole lot of fun getting out there here in a little bit. What was that?
What is that?
It's for babies that are in hospitals.
Very cool.
So, me and my wife had the triplets in February, and close to our hearts, just they help out families that are in need of medical bills and things like that along the way.
With you, brother.
So, yeah, absolutely. The NICU time certainly changes you. All right, time for some
Twitter on the 20.
Twitter on the 20. Our first question comes from Jordan. You guys talked about Denver in that first segment as a possible trade-up team in the first round. How would you guys feel about a trade back to 20 that would include a player? We can't talk about specific players, but this gentleman asking the question wanted to throw a wide receiver in the mix. So a veteran wide receiver.
Can I jump on this?
In the second round.
Nick?
You're not going to take a Pro Bowl level wide receiver for a pick swap.
Okay.
That's not going to happen. You would be giving up your first round pick.
So there you go.
Yeah, I've seen that around. It's not possible. It's not feasibly possible. Nobody in their right mind is going to agree to a trade like that.
Because the person here, Jordan, would say 20, and then I'll just read his tweet verbatim. He says, Cortland Sutton. He's a Pro Bowl wide receiver. Mm-hmm. You're not getting a first-round pick back and Cortland Sutton, right?
Well, the problem is to the world of Madden.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, we have an old Cowboys reporter that loves to be a headline clickbait guy. And that's where this is being generated from. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I saw that as well, and that's just not happening.
Okay. So now that we've shot that down, what would a realistic trade scenario look like? I think it goes back to what we talked about. Second-round pick, swapping back to 20, and then you would have to send something back in return, probably a fifth or a sixth.
You don't always have to make these deals fair. You don't.
I was going to say, you take the first and the second, and I think you shake some hands and
to me, like, listen, you hope
got our guys.
if you've talked about it, maybe pre-draft.
Yeah,
maybe that's something. I'm sure that Sean and Jerry and Steven have all talked pre-draft, and Sean's been known that Sean has a history of doing this. He has a history of trying to swing and get up there and grab a player. So it should be noted he's got a good football team over there in Denver, so he understands that. And if he could add somebody, if he's got somebody in mind he wants to come go get, then by all means. But I would pre-draft, talk to him and say, hey, listen, if you're interested in coming up, can we talk about 51? He goes, Jerry, I'm not interested in giving you 51. Mm-hmm. Okay, what are you interested in doing then? This thing doesn't have to be done on the clock, but if it's done on the clock, I'm trying to get 51 from him. If you want to pre-talk it out, we can maybe negotiate this thing if your guy's there. But otherwise, I'm going to take your 51 and go on with my day.
If Denver's trying to come up to grab a running back, let's say they're trying to come up to 12 to grab Hampton, who are they trying to get in front of? And if they can't get in front of them, when does this running back run start? Because if Hampton goes before 20, they probably roll with Henderson.
I wonder,
these running backs are flying off the board here in the first round.
I wonder if he's thinking about somebody other than Hampton.
Henderson potentially, or
just a different player.
Different player.
Just a different player, and then maybe trying to address it. But if he doesn't have a 2, maybe he can use his 3. That kind of thing. But if he is the one guy that will try and go up the board.
Yeah.
He is the and when you look at Andy Reid is another one coming from the bottom of the draft. Andy and those guys will try and move up if they can. But like I said, if I'm Sean Payton, or if I'm the Joneses, I'm talking to Sean, and it's like, listen, if your guy's here, give us a call. But I'm telling you right now, it's going to cost you 51 if you want to make this deal. Now think about that. And if your guy's here, we can do this. If your guy's not here, then we'll move on with our day. But it could be for another player other than Hampton.
I think it could be a tight end. I think he might be eyeing Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland.
Could be.
It could be one of those two, because if you
maybe corner too.
Yeah, because Indy could be a team that I've seen interested in a tight end potentially. So maybe you're trying to jump ahead of Indy at 14, and then Chicago and New Orleans both have been linked to Tyler Warren, as have the Jets. But it sounds more likely that the Jets would probably prefer to go to offensive line.
I heard that if Jacksonville at 5 traded back to, say, New Orleans at 9, then they're looking at Warren at tight end.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard.
Maybe that's what Sean Payton's wanting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, the needs that I have in front, wide receiver, running back, corner, tight end, those are kind of the 4 spots. And there are guys at each of those positions in the early parts of the draft that you could possibly get. Now, they did sign Evan Ingram, remember, in the middle of the offseason. So
they did. That's a good point.
They have a tight end. They have a guy there.
He's hurt guy.
He's hurt guy, but they signed one out of Jacksonville.
He had one year where he was really good.
Yeah, he did.
Not being hurt.
But that is a good point.
Yeah.
But there's at least somebody else there to compete. All right, somebody wanted us to go through this 3-round draft scenario for the Cowboys. This is off of Sleeper Cowboys, the Sleeper app that's on there. I don't know if we can even promote that stuff, but I'm gonna just give you the 3 scenarios, or they have 4 scenarios of the first 3-round picks. Starting with scenario 1, keep these in mind. Teteroa McMillan, Carson Schlesinger, UCLA linebacker, Damian Martinez, running back from Nick's favorite school, the Miami Hurricanes. That is the first one.
It's not true.
Okay. I know it's not true. Number 2, Matthew Golden, Texas wide receiver. Quinshon Judkins, running back from Ohio State, and then Noel Williams, corner from Cal. I know Brian likes Noel Williams quite a bit. Third scenario, Amarian Hampton, running back from North Carolina. Siobhan Ravel from East Carolina, he's a corner. And then Trey Harris, Ole Miss wide receiver. These are some tough scenarios. All three of these are good. Josh Simmons is the starter of the fourth scenario. I know that's Vach Lombardi's pick already. Offensive lineman from Ohio State, Travion Henderson. They go with the Ohio State brethren at running back. And then Alfred Collins, the defensive tackle from Texas, is at the end. So 4 opportunities. If you need me to repeat any of them, let me know.
My board would tell me the last one.
Yeah, same.
Simmons,
My board
Henderson,
would.
Collins.
I don't know if Dallas would do that.
Yeah.
Though. My board would tell me to take the last one. Is what it did. The Ravel one is also interesting. My board would tell me to do that one as well. But for Dallas, I think we have to have a different discussion here.
Yeah, you just need a corner so damn bad, and arguably 2 in this draft, and you hope your second one is at the top of day 3 rather than the bottom of day 3.
That's what stinks about the number 1 on that with Ted Schlesinger and Martinez, because that would also that'd be high for me. But no corner in there makes it really, really tough, and I think they've got to come away with a corner in the first 3 rounds they think can start immediately.
Yeah, I would love to combine 1 and 3 to make it Tet, Revel, and Martinez. That would be great. But in this scenario, I think I would go 3 with Hampton, Savon Revel, and Trey Harris. I love Trey Harris.
I'm with you on Harris.
If you get him in the 3rd round,
steal.
We're doing backflips down the hallway.
Yeah, that would be big time.
Yeah.
That one does seem to be the best one if you start to talk about what the Cowboys would do. Or what they potentially.
Wide receiver, you get them
hitting your needs.
There's a couple different ways. We need to figure out, though, the Morrison worked out. Nick, I don't know if you know this or not. Maybe I'm putting you on the spot. Morrison worked out yesterday in Arizona, and I don't know if the Cowboys sent coaches down there. They did?
They did.
Okay.
Notre Dame corner.
So now they got the Notre Dame corner covered. So they've got all these corners covered. Maybe there's a couple of these corners that have had injury histories that have first-round grades. Ravel, Morrison, those types of guys. Maybe these are guys that you would consider at 44. I don't know if they get to you, but if they would, that would be, to me, grabbing first-round guys off the board, off my particular board. I don't know about their board.
Man, I don't know which one I would go with. I think the 3rd one is where I would lean, just because it fills all 3 needs, and I feel confident in all 3 of those guys to be starters. Hampton, Revel, and Harris. I think all 3 of those guys could be there specifically. All right, Double R wants to know: can we get a comp between Thornton, the Tennessee wide receiver in the 3rd, or I guess day 3 possible pick, and Teteroa McMillan? Just curious if slightly faster big wide receiver drafted in the 3rd or later could give them a comparable production to what Tet McMillan would give them in the early parts of the draft.
For me, Ted has a lot more to his game. I mean, I see Dante Thornton as a straight line guy. I mean, he's got the speed, but he's a straight line guy, and he's going to have those explosive plays for you for sure. But he's going to meet some resistance starting off in the NFL because he doesn't have much of a route tree. He doesn't have much deception. Whereas Ted McMillan has a deception. He can beat you in the short to intermediate game. He can take the bubble screens and take them to the house. He can beat you with a double move down the field. Whereas Dante Thornton, I don't feel like has that same type of feel. But Dante Thornton, I've said it on this show a couple times, I think he would be a fun addition to this team if they don't end up getting that big possession guy early, and they're still going into day 3 looking for a receiver. I think that's a guy that would be a lot of fun. It's 6'5", 205. He can go up and grab it. He gives you that red zone presence. He ran a 4.3 at the combine, so he's got the speed too. You just hope there would be some refinement with him as well. Also, one thing to note about Dante Thornton Jr., Junior Adams recruited him to Oregon. That's where he began his career.
He transferred from Oregon.
There are some connections between Dante Thornton Jr. and this coaching staff.
Yeah, this Thornton is really explosive. The problem is he doesn't make anybody miss.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the total opposite of what you got in McMillan. I think that's the biggest thing between these two guys when you start to talk about, but the size, the ability to go get the football. Nick hit it on the head. These Tennessee receivers, we marvel at the plays they make down the field, but we also are upset that they only run 2 routes.
Yeah.
You know, and this guy is a big slant and a big vertical guy.
Yep.
But, you know, not to say he can't learn and do other things, but at 6'5" and 205 and the speed he has, absolutely, with the connections there with the Cowboys receivers coach, you know, you'd have to consider that guy on day 3 for sure.
Yeah, I wrote kind of a one-trick pony, but gosh, that trick is fun. And it is. I mean, he's a vertical
there's two
threat.
tricks. He's got some size to him.
Yeah, the size down the field
Just gotta
on a
teach
9
him a
route
lot.
and throw it up to him. I mean, yeah, and he's super skinny. And I wonder if you find another big corner to go against him, he jams him at the line. Is he just going to get absolutely bullied? I mean, that's I don't think there is a comparison between those two.
No.
You're talking night and day difference.
Can we call this episode "That Trick Is Fun"?
That trick is fun.
That trick is fun.
It's a fun
I
trick.
can make that happen. Now, I did in my my 7-round mock draft that I released on the Blitz this past weekend. I in my simulation, Teteroa McMillan was not there at 12. I went with Matthew Golden at 12. That was just the pick that I had. I went with the value there on my board, and I stuck in pick with Matthew Golden. Because of that, Thornton was available in the 5th round for me. I double dipped at wide receiver. I could see something like that. Maybe not those two specifically, Golden and Thornton, but I could see them double dipping in certain spots to try and get what they weren't able to get in the first couple of rounds, depending on who they go with at 12.
I feel like if they're going to double dip, sorry, I know we're on the next one. I feel like if they're going to double dip, you look at defensive tackle because they've only got 5 on this roster
That's
right
a good
now.
one, yeah.
So there's got to be, unless they sign somebody else here in the coming days before the draft or even after the draft, you got to feel like defensive tackle is the spot where they're going to double dip.
If I could give you a real quick double dip, this is from John Owning, did it on his mock draft. Bashard Smith from SMU, and then he went with Jarquez Hunter from Auburn.
Okay.
How do you like that combination?
I'd like that a lot.
Yeah, I think
Couple running backs.
Rashard Smith would give you some slot flexibility too, so you could find many packages where they're both on the field for you. I would hope you get a back a little bit earlier than Jarquez
but
Hunter.
he did not take one in the first 3
Gotcha.
picks,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
he just double dipped it on
day 3.
On day 3.
But I'm looking for a similar type. I think I would like my Nungai a little bit better, or a Ollie Gordon or a Taj Brooks. That's in kind of that same range for me.
Yeah.
A Lan Larison in that same range
Saying
for me.
over Smith or
over Hunter,
okay.
and then Smith doubling back. Yeah,
because all those guys are bigger than Hunter, but I do like that combination. We talked about that yesterday, but I'm with you. I mean, I got Taj Brooks in the 3rd. I'm a massive Taj Brooks fan. I think that guy can do everything.
Texas Tech.
You don't have to take him off the field. I mean, and he's a tremendous pass blocker as well. Just not a burner for you, but you get that with Rashard Smith, so that would be a good compliment.
Yeah, I've got them almost all those names except for Hunter, who is in the 5th for me. I've got everybody else that you guys talked about in the 4th. So right around that same conversation. All right. Somebody wanted to send us, it's an excerpt of the pre-draft press conference call from the Move the Sticks podcast and Daniel Jeremiah. He talked about, and he had an interesting answer for how the Cowboys could take an interior offensive lineman instead at pick number 12. I think they need to upgrade the receiver room for sure, is the quote. The expectation, though, in talking to folks around the league in regards to the Cowboys, is that they've done a lot of work on the interior offensive lineman. Does that change the way you think about things, or how does that fit in to the thought process?
That's why I asked Nick where he had Golden in relation to some of these other players, because I have to feel like that maybe – could Booker, be above? Could Booker, Jackson, one of these the guards from Ohio State, Jackson.
Would you consider Banks in that conversation?
Banks could absolutely be in that mix for sure if you want to play him at guard. I got him at tackle, but to them he's probably a guard. But yeah, I think that those guys very well could be all above, and maybe not Jackson, but Booker, and then and sure Banks could be above Golden. And if that's the stack, then that's where I would say that maybe that's how they feel, then that's probably the direction that they might go.
These are just alignment I have above Golden: Banks, Booker, Gray Zabel, Mimbu, Campbell, and Connerly. I'm a big Connerly. And Simmons, excuse me. And Simmons. Yeah. I'm a big Connerly.
I remember you being big on
Connerly. Yeah, Connerly's athletic.
Yeah.
I like
so,
Arion
Nick,
Taylor
you wouldn't have a problem with them taking a guard then at 12? Or you wouldn't have a problem, a lineman at 12?
For training camp content purposes, I would be crushed. But no,
we're trying to win football games.
I wouldn't have that. I mean, you look back to what Brian Schottenheimer said at the league meetings in Florida about, we want to get more physical. We want to run the damn football. We're going to be a physical team. I asked him, what do you want this offensive identity to be? Right out the gates, he said, this is going to be a physical football team. We're going to get after it at the point of attack. It wouldn't surprise me if a lineman is very much in play here at 12 and they go with a Banks there, or if somehow Campbell slides. If Campbell's there, then they pivot on that guy. The question for me that becomes really interesting is if they take Simmons, because what the hell do they do? Who are they moving inside? Where who's coming off the field? Because Guyton's not going to play guard. Steele's not going to play guard. Simmons isn't going to play guard. I mean, unless you're really trying to project him at a different spot on the different side of the ball, that's where things get a little interesting. But I can understand, like, if you talk about window dressing your board, if you really like a guy and he's at the top of your board there for you, you got to pick him and you figure it out later.
No chance Steele could play right guard?
I don't think so.
They talk about the power and stuff like that, or lack of. I don't think that would be the case.
And you want to maximize Steele's athleticism. And like I said at Draft 101 last week, like I said with the Draft 101 last week, this coaching staff is going to help Terrence Steele more than any other player on this roster.
I do agree with you.
And are you giving up on Tyler Guyton after year one? That would be a question too.
If they take Simmons, that's a big indictment on what they think about Guyton.
I'll tell you what, though, Simmons would start right off the jump.
He would be fantastic
for me, and I don't think you would look back. I think you would be really, really happy with him playing tackle for you. I just, like I said, I just think he's too good of a player. But I'm all about, if they're going to take a lineman at 12, I never have a problem. What do you guys, real quick, and I know it's a wholly different show, but with like Awesome Richards, could Awesome Richards play right guard?
Yeah, it's certainly a possibility.
I mean, he likes to play. He wants to play guard more than he does tackle. Are we not thinking about him or Thomas? One of these guys.
Yeah, Nate Thomas is a guy.
I mean, I know it's maybe they're thinking about guys that we're not thinking about.
Sure.
And that's why then you would say, well, hell, we'll draft Simmons or one of these guys and play him at tackle, and then we'll let Guyton go compete. Maybe on the right side there and figure this thing out.
Yeah.
One thing about Simmons, his medicals are pretty strong. Everyone feels pretty good about that knee going into the draft. So.
And every time something like that comes out, it continues to push him up and up draft.
He could go way higher than we're talking. He could go before the Cowboys even pick it.
I got a lot of followers from Kansas City fans because I talk about him. Everybody in Kansas City thinks he's going to be there at 31. Hell, he might be. If they do, then Andy Reid, I'm going to kiss you when I see you.
Oof. That would be interesting. All right. When we come back,
when I see you.
When we come back,
frame that in the loop.
We're going to hit some more 3-round mock drafts that we're putting together and we've put together over these final days leading into the NFL draft. More of the draft show right after this.
I'm Darren Woodson, former Dallas Cowboy player and Super Bowl champion. When I played in the NFL at a high level, I relied on my vision to see the field. As I started getting older, I noticed my vision wasn't as good, and I was getting frustrated from wearing my glasses all day. I went to Laser Care Eye Center, and Dr. G talked about all the options. Thanks to technology and Laser Care Eye Center, I can see near, far, and between. Don't fumble your vision any longer. Visit them at dfweyes.com and tell them Darren sent you. They got me back on my game.
Star Sports Tours is the only official fan travel partner of the Dallas Cowboys, offering exclusive game weekend travel packages with pre-game sideline access and photo ops with current players, cheerleaders, and Cowboy legends. You want to stay at a team hotel, attend the best tailgate party in Texas, tour the Star, and talk X's and O's with me, Everson Walls? With Star Sports Tours, you can. Visit cowboystravel.com to book your travel package today.
Life is a workout, and Smoothie King is here to help you power through. Whether you're maxing out overhead presses, pushing through chest flies, or being the hero your golden retriever needs to carry them over that scary bridge, Smoothie King has the fuel to help you go all out. Build muscle and boost your recovery with 45 grams of protein, 0 grams of added sugar, and delicious customizable ingredients in the Gladiator Smoothie. Available in chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla. Only at Smoothie King.
How about them Cowboys? Or how about them Tyson Cowboys Nuggets? As we cheer for the stars on the field, we love that we've also got some stars on our plate, thanks to Tyson brand star-shaped Cowboys Nuggets. That, along with all our other favorite Tyson Foods products, sure make game day special. Score some delicious Tyson Cowboys Nuggets and become a game day star, just like our Cowboys. As you enjoy your stars on and off the plate, remember, tailgates and game day have always been Tyson.
This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
Back here on the Draft Show, get excited for the most dazzling DCC experience yet. Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders on Tour is coming to a theater near you. Witness live performances, enjoy an on-stage Q&A session, and even be a part of a live audition if you're in Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, Midland, or El Paso. Mark your calendar for dates and tickets. Visit DallasCowboysCheerleaders.com/tour. Back to the Draft Show presented by Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. It's Miller time with Zach Wilczek, Brian Broaddus, Tommy Yarish, Nick Harris, Chris Beam in the back. I'm Kyle Yeomans. Tommy, I'll let you start. 3-round mock drafts. What do you think the Cowboys are going to do come Thursday?
Oh, I don't feel confident about this at all, but we're going to do it nonetheless. First round, I'm going Matthew Golden, wide receiver from Texas. Like I said, I don't think Ted McMillan is going to be there. I think Golden.
All right.
Thank you,
Chris.
Thank you, Matthew McConaughey. I think that Golden's the second best receiver that the Cowboys would look at in that spot. I think, even though I've like I said, I still got Burden higher on my board. I think Golden's the other name that they're looking at. So I go Golden in the first, Savon Revel Jr., the corner from East Carolina, in the second. I feel like that might be one where he just drops, and if you're questioning the medicals too much, depends what the report is on him. I've heard nothing. I don't think I've heard anything concerning. Is there anything to?
It's just a matter of if he's going to be ready at camp,
training camp.
Yeah.
I think he's.
I've heard really good stuff about him. Believe it or not.
Good.
The same people saying about Ravel is the same people that said Brooks was going to be ready in time for camp last year. So I worry about that. And Brooks wasn't ready till October. So that's the only thing that's holding me back on being like, yeah, Ravel's fine, but we'll see.
Good to keep up with, though.
Thanks for saying that after I made my
Gosh, what a bad pick.
I like your pick, though.
I'd still love to take Rowe.
He's a
he's a great player.
He's awesome.
And then third round, I'm taking Jordan Phillips, defensive tackle, Maryland. I would love Alfred Collins in this spot. I think Collins is going to go before that in the third. So you get your one tech there in the middle of the defensive line because, like I said,
Brother, this guy stinks.
For what? What did I do?
Because you passed on the Texas guy.
Yeah.
Well, no, I said he's not going to be there.
Okay.
No.
He's going to go too high.
Yeah, I think he's not going to be there.
That was Tommy's reaction whenever it happened.
Yeah.
You would play Phillips at the one tech?
I would.
Okay. Yeah, Cowboys defensive line coach Aaron Whitecotton was at his pro day. He's just got 3-tech, 5-tech experience, and I think there is a slide inside that's possible in his future. He'd be strictly there for you on early rundowns. 0 sacks in his career. That's just the one thing that really stands out to me from a pass rush perspective.
Yeah, I do like Jordan Phillips, though. Big fan of his.
All right, Brian, what you think? I like your 3 picks, by the way, Tommy. You don't stink, I promise.
Thanks,
Brian. What are your 3?
I beg to differ.
I'm struggling with 2 with the fact that I don't think McMillan's going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm struggling with that. I do think that they're going to go. I think they're going to go in opposite direction here. I think they're going to take a cornerback here. I think Will Johnson's going to be the pick.
Wow.
For them at 12. There might be some possibility of him going earlier, but I have a feeling that I think there's just, and that's why I keep asking this question about the gap between McMillan and, say, Golden.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking that maybe that the way they're going to stack this thing, there's going to be a defensive player or an offensive player, and it's not going to be a wide receiver that's going to be there. I think that Will Johnson might be one of the guys that they really, really consider there. So I'm going to take Will Johnson with that pick.
I don't want to disrupt you too bad, but I do want to ask a question before moving on. Do you feel like the Matthew Golden conversation has been a smokescreen the entire time?
No, I don't. I think that they're legitimately trying to figure out, though, about the receiver position. But I think as we were going along here, we didn't consider where they're stacked. And I know I'm making a big deal about this, but I think it's really important to them.
It is.
Because what happens when you get in that room, you don't want big time discussions on the clock. As a group, we agreed. This is our player. These is how we see these players. If it's our turn to pick, these are our guys. I think Golden is a hell of a player, and they absolutely need a wide receiver. But I just wonder if there's guys on their board that they feel that's better. And that's why I asked Nick that question. I think Nick's got a really good handle on this, of the guys that between say McMillan and then also Golden. I'm not as deep as he is on those, but I think he's going the right direction here. Yeah. So I'm gonna pick Will Johnson there with the 12th pick. I'm going to turn around in the second round, and I'm going to say that they're going to have a chance to draft Henderson here. I think Henderson is going to get to them at 44. So I'm going to go with Johnson, Henderson, and then I'm going to go ahead and give you an idea of I'm going to take Royals, the wide receiver from Utah State.
Ooh, love that.
I like that.
So corner, I didn't get the defensive tackle. Maybe some of these guys slide. That would be something I think that would be, would help the Cowboys. But let's go Johnson right there. Let's go Henderson, and let's go Royals.
I think
3 picks.
the way that Cowboys fans would react to those 3 picks, they would be a little disappointed in Will Johnson, just based off of initial reaction. That's it. I think Will Johnson can be a good player. I have a first-round grade on him specifically. I'm a little higher on Will Johnson than most, so I wouldn't be upset about it. I think Cowboys fans as a whole would probably be upset. However, the 2 and 3 round haul that you get there with Henderson and Royals, I think that would subside all of the disappointment from round 1, and you get 3 solid spots filled.
Oh, they'd be home runs.
I think those are 2 grand slams in the second and the third round.
Because I'd pray they'd make it there. I don't think that they would, but gosh, if they did, Brian, you got a great cluster there. I love those 3 picks.
What are your 3?
I'm going to stick with Ted McMillan. And you're right. He might not be there, but I think that he's the guy that they want. He's the guy that I would also like. So I'm just going to go ahead and hope that the draft gods are shining on the Cowboys like they did with C.D. Lamb a few years ago, and Ted McMillan finds his way to navigate to 12. Then I do think you're going to get a run on corners. I don't know if this player's going to be there, but Maxwell Harrison, the corner of Kentucky, I don't know that we've linked him a lot to the Cowboys, 6'1", 186. He tied the school record for most interceptions returned for touchdowns. Super athlete, team captain. He's a great zone cover guy. I think that he's one of the better corners in this draft. He might end up sneaking into the first round and not being there. And then in the third, I thought about defensive tackle as well. I do think I'm going to just go with the running back here, and Tootin from Virginia Tech is the guy. Now, I personally do like R.J. Harvey more, but they might like Brayshaw Tootin a little bit more out of Virginia Tech. And he's an electrifying runner, incredible production, home run speed. He's physical between the tackles despite being a smaller back. Those 3 would get me very, very excited if that's what they were able to do day 1 and 2.
We would have such a fun conversation if we're there at 76 and they haven't taken the running back yet, because there's going to be so many in that sweet spot.
Yeah,
we're going to have a fun conversation about that, and probably a fun conversation in the war room between guys like Tootin, R.J. Harvey, Damian Martinez, Devin Neal if he's in that mix for them, guys like that. My 3, I'll go backwards. Third round, Brayshaw Tootin, I'm with you. I think there's a lot of things that make sense about him in this offense, and you factor in him being a 30-visit guy as well. I think he just makes a lot of sense, especially when you talk about being violent, being physical. He is that type of guy. In the second round, Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. This is a top 25 player on my board.
I think he's so for that.
I think he is legit. You would have to play some musical chairs at the corner spot to figure out who's going to slide inside, who's going to be your inside guy, especially once Diggs gets healthy. But it also gives you the freedom until Diggs gets healthy. And then in the first round, I'm going Michael Williams at 12. And who knows, this could change by Thursday, but that's the pick I see happening right now. But if you ask my confidence level on it, I'm all the way in Narnia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, do we all feel, if you gave me a scale of 1 to 10, what would be your confidence level on your first-round pick?
I mean, I'm 100% if he's on the board. I'm just scared that he's not there.
I agree with you there, but let's
I just stuck with it.
What's your confidence level that he's on the board?
Right now, I'm like at 10%.
Okay, so you would give me a 1 out of 10.
Yeah.
So what would be your confidence level in your first round pick, Brian?
I am 4. I'm 5. I'm going to 5 out of 10.
Okay, halfway there.
Go like 4.
4. Probably a 4. My first round right now is golden. I think we're going to learn a lot over the next 48 hours. I really do. I'm still thinking golden at the point. My second round pick would be Siobhan Revell out of ECU, going with that cornerback spot. I know he's a little banged up, but I still think he's an immediate player and a first round caliber player when he's healthy. And then my third one would be Brayshaw Tootin as well out of Virginia Tech. Let's make something out of that running back room in the third round, and then we can continue to fix it from there. But I would put a 3 on my confidence level with Golden in the first round pick.
Really quick, the positions of need, the dire positions of need for this team. You talk about receiver, you talk about corner and defensive tackle. And you could even throw running back in there too.
Sure.
The one position that I think you could get away with not picking in the first 2 days, and you'll find somebody in free agency still and still have a competent option at that spot is receiver. And I wonder how much they think about the same thing, because that was certainly their thinking last year at the running back position. It just didn't work out for them. I do wonder how much that factors in, because if they sign that guy yesterday, that guy would factor into a comp pick formula. If they sign him next Wednesday, it doesn't necessarily factor into a comp pick formula.
I think that's a great point. And as we've talked, like the Golden Igbuka battle, I think, Brian, with Will Johnson there, if Tet's not on the board, I could easily see Will Johnson being the pivot pick there.
I just think that it's somebody, and I picked somebody, and I could have picked Michael Williams there too.
Yeah.
I just think they're going to be a large, I shouldn't say large, there's going to be several players between McMillan and Golden on the stack. That's how I think this is going to play out, because they could, hell, we talked about Golden, they could be Burden, could be there, Ibuka. I mean, these are guys, they could like both those guys more than they like Golden. You know, it's just been a lot of buzz about Golden. I think a lot of it has to do with the speed. He's an outstanding player. But I think there's just a group of players that they maybe like a little bit better in between. And that's kind of what I factored in on my selections.
Yeah. All right. That's going to do it for us here on the Draft Show. Next time we're going to be on the air, 6 o'clock Central Time on Thursday. We'll have an hour lead in to get you ready for the first 32 picks on the board. We'll be suited and booted. The investigation, the education, all of that is done. Hay is in the barn. We'll give you some more info as we get closer and closer to the 12th overall pick coming up on Thursday. You can find us on 105.3 The Fan. Find us on the Odyssey app, DallasCowboys.com, Dallas Cowboys streaming platforms. It's going to be all over the place on Thursday. Cannot wait to go wall-to-wall coverage of the entire 2025 NFL Draft. Yes, Vach Lombardi will be there. Yes, Bobby Belt will be there. Everybody will be rotating hourly throughout the weekend, so you will hear from every single person on our Draft Show panel throughout the weekend, and even more so as all 3 days unfold. But that's going to do it for us. For Zach Wolchuk, Brian Broaddus, Tommy Yarish, Nick Harris, Chris Beam in the back, I'm Kyle Yeomans saying so long from the Draft Show. We'll see you on Thursday. It's time for the 2025 NFL Draft.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!